Look, the Hilig Gemara. Okay, so we learned the Mishnah yesterday on Daf Zayin Amud Aleph. We'll go through it very quickly, and then we'll get started with the Gemara. So Mishal Marini Nazir, and we learned most of this Mishnah already throughout the Masechta. Mishal Marini Nazir Megalech Yom Shloishim V'Echad. So the Stam Naziris is either 30 days like Rav Masna, and therefore the Chatchila, the Giluch is on day 31. Or if you hold like Bar Pado, that the Stam Naziris is only 29 days, the reason why you wait the 31 days is because often people say Haredi Nazir Shloishim Yoim. Therefore, to make sure that you don't make a mistake, even when someone specified 30 days, we have every Nazir do their Giluach on day 31. But if you were Megalech on day 30 instead of day 31 Yotza, again, according to Rav Masna, who holds Nazir is 30 days, it's because Rav Masna holds of Mitzvah Sayom Kekulai. According to Bar Pada, that Nazir is 29 days, so day 30 is the perfect day to be Megalech. Hareni Nazir Shloishim Yom. Im Gilach Liyom Shloishim. If he wrongfully did his Giluach on day 30, then Lo Yotza. Then he's not Yotza. Why? Because according to Bar Pada, he spoke out 30 days. So clearly he needs to wait a complete 30 days. According to Rav Masna, that Stam Nazir is 30 days. If you say 30 days, even though you didn't need to, because Stam Nazir is 30 days, it's as if you said 30 days Shleimim, and therefore you need to wait for day 31. So day 30, you would not be Yotzeh. Misha Nazir Shtei Naziros back to back. So the Lechatchila would be Migalechas Rishona Yom Shloishim Ve'echad, like we said earlier, and then you count the next 30 days V'Shashnia Yom Shishim Ve'echad. That's best case scenario. What happens when Gilachas Rishona Yom Shloishim? So then day 30 counts as day 1. The remainder of day 30 counts as day 1 for the second Naziris, which means day 30 of the second Naziris would be day 59. Therefore, Megalech Lechatchila is a Shnia Yom Shishim, which is the day after the Naziris. Gilach Yom Shishim Chaser Echad. But if you did Giluch on day 59, which is day 30, Yotza, you're still Yotza, just like we said earlier, that on day 30, if you're Megalech, although that's not Lechatchila, you'll be Yotza. Rav Papayis did say this about someone who did two Naziris. Shem Gilach is a Rishoni Yom Shloishim, Megalech is a Shnia Liyom Shishim. Thank you so much, Mati. Gilach Liyom Shishim Chaser Echad. And if you did Giluch on 59, Yata Shiyom Shel Shloishim Oila Lo Min Aminim. Day 30 counts as day 1 of the second Naziris. Zok Tehelig Gemara Vak. Misham already Nazir. Some said already Nazir. Nitma Yom Shloishim. And he became Tame on day 30. Soiser as a coil, it soiser the whole Naziris because you became Tame during the 30 days of the Naziris. But Rabbi Eliezer Eimer ain't a soiser el shiva. It's actually not soiser anything at all because since the first half of day 30 you kept bitahira, you did not destroy your Naziris. So why does Rabbi Eliezer say it destroys 7 days? In fact, it destroys 0 days. But since he's Tame, he can't go through the process of bringing his karbanos to terminate his Naziris. So he has to wait 7 days till he does that, and that's why Rabbi Eliezer uses the wording Ein Soiser El Shiva, because practically speaking, he's going to have to maintain his Naziris for another 7 days. Hareni Nazir Shloishim Yoim. What if someone said Hareni Nazir Shloishim Yoim, where you need to keep 30 complete days? Well, then Nitma Yom Shloishim Soiser Esakoil. If you became Tame on the last day, it's going to be Soiser everything. You didn't fulfill your term of Naziris. What if someone said already Nazir Meya Yoim? So Nitma Yoim Meya, if he became Tame on day 100, Soiser as a coil, it's in the middle of his term, so of course it's Soiser the whole thing. Comes Rabbi Eliezer the Chiddush in a Soiser el Shloishim, it's only Soiser 30 days. And we learned earlier in the Masechta why it's only Soiser 30 days. Rabbi Eliezer has a special pasuk of Zois Taurus and Nazir. We'll see the pasuk, the Gemara quotes it. There was a special pasuk telling you that if someone becomes Tame on the last day of his Naziris, he almost made it to the finish line. The Torah tells us he only has to keep one Taurus and Nazir, one set of 30 days. What if happens if Nitma Yomei Echad? if he became Tame on day 101, which is surely after his Naziris, Soiser Shloishim Yoim. It still is Soiser Shloishim Yoim, and that's Midrabanan. We make him keep another 30 days. Rabbi Eliezer says, in the Soiser L'Shiva, once again, in the Soiser L'Shiva means that he can't bring his Karbanas because he's Tame, so he has to wait 7 days. Zok the Gemara. Mishamar Reini Nazir, we're just quoting one line in the Mishnah. Mishamar Reini Nazir, Benitme Yom Shloishim Soiser Sekoil, Rabbi Eliezer in the Soiser L'Shiva. Zok the Hail of the Gemara. Kasava Rabbi Eliezer holds, Kol Achar Malois, once you're after the term of the Naziris, the only amount of time that becoming Tame interrupts is Shiva Soiser. Hareini Nazir Shloishim Yom V'nitma Yom Shloishim Soiser Sekoil. And Rabbi Eliezer holds it's not Soiser Hakoil. Like Polak Rabbi Eliezer, I'm sorry. In the case of Hareini Nazir Shloishim Yom, where you spoke out, it wasn't Stam Naziris, but you spoke out 30 days, like Polak Rabbi Eliezer, the Amr Shleiman. Once you say Hareini Nazir Shloishim Yom, that clearly means Shleimim, and everybody agrees that it's going to be Soiser. What about the last case of the Mishnah, Hareini Nazir Mea Yom, V'nitma Yoimeya Soiser Sekoil, Rabbi Eliezer Hareini Soiser L'Shloishim. So the Gemara v'chula k'dahavinan aliba devarpada v'rabmasna. I'm not saying this again, Zok the Gemara. I already taught you this entire sugya back at the beginning of the Masechta, and if you look it up there and you remember what it is, then I don't need to tell you again. And the Mefarish is kind enough to tell us again. The time of Rabbi Eliezer, Mishum Duk Amar Kra, it says Zois Tairas HaNazir B'yoim Melois. So the Torah teaches us that Nitma B'yoim Melois, if somebody comes Tame on the last day of his Naziris, Tain Loi Tairas Nazir, Zois Tairas HaNazir, give him a standard Naziris. Someone who becomes Tame on the last day of his extended Naziris, give him a standard Naziris.
Why don't we say the legislation?
Because it's if it's only Shloshim Yom, we actually had that. In the case of actually 30 days, why wasn't he go back 30 days? Let me just see. He doesn't say that there. Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom, Nitnu Yom Shloshim Shloshim Sekoil. Maybe he does. No, it doesn't say. It doesn't say not like that. Could be he does say that. That's if you said Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom because you spoke out Shloshim Yom that you want Shloshim Shloim. I'm sorry.
You spoke out of Mea Yom. You say that it's not Soiser, it's only Shloshim. I guess.
No, when you said Mea Yom, you had to say Mea Yom if you want 100 days. But if you only want 30 days, you don't need to say Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom. It's enough to say Hareini Nazir plain, because Stam Naziris is 30 days. So if you specify 30 days, even though Stam Naziris is 30 days, that means you want a complete. You want to complete Naziris.
The previous shtickle starts on.
Now, whether or not, so, but I do want to make something very, very clear. Our Mishnah speaks about a case where you said the Ferish Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom. The Mishnah does not say specifically a case. What if I said Stam Hareini Nazir, right? I said Hareini Nazir, and on the last day, I became Tame. He doesn't say if you go back 30 days or not, right? It doesn't say. So there's actually a machloikis. We had a machloikis Rishonim at the beginning. Where does it say Shiva? Which case is Shiva?
Misha Amar Hareini Nazir.
Right.
Stam. He didn't say Shloshim Yom.
Right.
And it may Yom Shloshim.
Oh, I'm sorry. He does say. I apologize. So you know what? Let's go back quickly to Vav and Beis, because I know it's discussed specifically over there. It's discussed quickly over there. Let me just see over here where he says it. Nipna Lamed Yom Soiser Sekoil. Let's see what we have over here. So he says it over here. Tosis addresses it right over here. It discusses 130 right over here. The decision shloishim l'rabbanan ein elav d'rabbanan. Alma the gzeri d'rabbanan heicha the aman vav amaralov heicha the nazir stam otu heicha the amar shloishim yom shleimim the oz vadi soiser akalu plama. V'lezel l'gaz l'kach en yisoiser elo shiva. Okay. V'hida l'kaman nitma yoymeya v'echa the soiser shloishim tzarich litchois l'bar pada v'loimer the anami d'rabbanani. It's all gzera. The kulachak zeri the law like kaimaha. The lo yister shloishim Kishenitma yom kufalef yavoyu leimer kamoikein shalista shloshim kishenitma b'yom hashloshim according to our pada. So the question here is, you're asking me if according to Rabbi Lozer on day 100 it's only soiser 30. What was your question?
What does it mean it's soiser 30?
It means he has to keep another 30 days of the years.
I guess 30 is the minimum. So if you said shloshim yom, then the whole thing is soiser.
Right. And if you just said already Nazir, because of mixes hayom kukuloi, we don't look at it like it's soiser at all. But if you said 100 days and you did day 100, you don't say mixes hayom kukuloi. I guess because once you speak out a number, it means a full day. Okay.
Here by shloshim,
Right.
does he have to say shloshim yom shleim?
No, even if he doesn't say shleimim, Tosfos tells us it's as if he said shleimim. If you speak out 30 days, it's as if he said shleimim.
Here in the Lucian look on the third to the last line.
Right.
The fourth word, the shloshim yom shleim. And here,
Yeah, but earlier Tosfos says that since he could have just said already Nazir, and he said already Nazir shloshim yom, it means he wants shleimim.
And here the Lucian is like the second line here. Right, so
Tosfos learns it means it's as if he said shleim, not that he actually said shleim. Since he spoke out 30 and he didn't need to, so therefore he only keeps 30 days. Okay, therefore you don't say mixes hayoim kikuli. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. Go back to it over here. The Gemara says, follow the way we said there before. So I still have to get clear. If you said already Nazir Meya Yom, and he became Tame on the last day, according to the Rebbe Lezer and the Mishnah, you only lose 30 days. The question is, why don't you say mixes hayom kukuloi on the 100 days? Right? That's the only thing that's a little bit unclear. The same way, if on day 30 by Stam Naziris, Rav Masna holds mixes hayom kukuloi, why don't you say mixes hayom kukuloi according to Rav Masna on day 100? I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look that up.
So this limit that he said is the Yom Elois has a special. So which day?
Exactly. The last day.
Or the day after?
No, it means the last day. It means the last day. But I think that halacha only applies to the 100 days. It doesn't apply to the 30 days. Okay, this is where the Gemara says it. And this is, he's talking about 100. The question is, why doesn't this apply to 30 either? If you said already Nazir on a Stam Naziris, and you become Tame on day 30, what did we say? What is the halacha? If you become a Tame on day 30, what did we say? Is the halacha?
That's right.
No, only these spoke out Shloshim Yom. By Stam Naziris, it does not say. It does say Shiva.
That's the bottom line of the.
Right, Misham already Nazir and Nitma Yom Shloshim. Soiser a coil according to the Tanakama, but according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's any soiser elo Shiva, right? Why? Because you say mixes hayom kukula. So, but you don't say that by day 100.
Right.
Why don't you say on day 100 it's hayom kukula?
The 100 he spoke out. He didn't just say I'm Nazir.
Yeah, but according to Masa, you should still say mixes hayom kukula. Only by shloshim you don't say mixes hayom kukula, because the fact that I spoke out 30 says that I want mixes hayom kukula. I want shleimim. So by 100, he doesn't say that. So by 100, according to Masna, by 100, he shouldn't need shleimim. He actually speaks about that. The kasha is a mixing of a kulai. Oh, so that is the kasha over here. The Gemara actually access right here on the Avav Maveis. Tana reading this Yom Nitla Yomea, Soish a call bless Armin Soish Shloshim. Misal Gedaitach, Savar Beliezer mixing Yom Kulai, Nister Shiva, Viloi, Savar mixing Kulai, Nister Kulai. So the Gemara answers, Loilam Armin mixing Yom Kulai, Yachalista Kulai, Amishlokish had time to Beliezer of Soish Tyrus. But the question is, why don't you say that on day 30 as well? And that's what I'm not sure of. That's what I'm not sure of. Why you don't say it on day 30? Why doesn't this apply to day 30? That's what I'm not sure of. Oh, let's just sit over here 1 second. Vim Toiv Barpada Eliezer. Look at your Parpada, but here it asks over here according to Rav Masna. Rav Masna the Omer Eliezer mixes the Yom Kukulai. After it, the Kaidim will be in Kaf for this to Lazayin. The Torah Chutchis V'Omer. Oh, that's what he says. It has to be speaking. We said Irani Nazir Meya Yom Shleiman. That's what it was. The Tosfos over there says that our Mishnah says that even if you said Irani Nazir Meya Yom Shleiman, it's only Soiser 30 days. But if you didn't say Meya Yom Shleiman, then in fact it wouldn't be Soiser at all because you have mixed Yom Kukulai. Right? That's what Tosfos answered there. I apologize that I forgot, but yeah, now I remember the Tosfos. Okay, Zok Tehillah Gemara. Misha Nazar. So just to make a quick recap, if someone said Areni Nazar Shloishim Yoyim, he speaks out 30 days, then according to everybody, he needs 30 full days. And if he is Soiser than Naziris on day 30, everybody holds it's Soiser everything. That's according to everybody. If someone said plain Hareni Nazir, Kula al Moida, that if he sees on day 30, it's not going to be a problem. Because you'd say mixes you have a kula according to Masna, according to Barpada, anyway, the Nazir is only 29 days. If someone said 100 days and he said Shleimim, and on the last day of the Naziris, he is Soiser, so that's where Rabbi Eliezer is a Chiddush, that it's only Soiser 30 days if the steer happened on the last day. So who then, if he said I already Nazir Zayin Yom Shleimim, that means 30 days Shleimim, he also only has to repeat 30 days, but in that case, 30 days is the whole Naziris. So the Chiddush is that whenever you're Soiser on the last day of Naziris, you only have to go back 30 days. It's Nagaya, if you're Makabal a much longer Naziris, instead of redoing the whole Naziris, you only redo 30 days. Okay, Gavalti. Zok Teile Mishnah. Misha Nazar, someone was Makabal Naziris, but he was in the basic forest when he was Makabal the Naziris. So he's Tame even before he was Makabal the Naziris. So Zok the Mishnah, it's not really a Kabbalas Naziris, and therefore, even if he was in the basic forest for 30 days, or he was in the status of Tumah for 30 days, he was not Matar himself, you don't say at all that his Naziris was Chal. His Naziris was not Chal at all. And this is just a Havamina. The Gemara is going to end up changing what I'm saying. He's not considered to be a Nazir. And therefore, may be carbon tumah. And this is the main focus of the Mishnah. He will not bring carbon tumah. Since when he was Makabal Naziris, he was already Tame. He doesn't bring a carbon as if he was already a Nazir and then he became Tame. Those rules don't apply to him. He doesn't bring that carbon. Rather, he has to be Matar himself. And then he starts his Naziris. What happens if it's Yotza v'nichnas? He left Tumah, meaning he had Zrika of Shlishi or Shvi, like you normally need for the Paraduma. And then he could start a new Naziris. And we'll soon see, does he need a new Kabbalas Naziris or not? But Yotza v'nichnas, Eidan Loy min Aminyan, now moving forward, he can count those days. And if he becomes Tumah again, then it may be carbon Tumah, because now he became Tame after he became a Nazir. Not on the same day. For instance, he became Tahar today, and he was Makabal Naziris today, and he became Tame today. You don't bring a carbon as if you were a regular Nazir that was Tahar that became Tame, because you only had 1 day of Tahara. And when there's only 1 day of Tahara, you don't bring a carbon. Shenemar v'yomim harishonim yiplu. Until there's at least 2 days, miyat yomim is 2. Unless there's at least 2 days of my count that I lose when I become Tame, we don't have the halachas of a Nazir Tame. And therefore, if he was only Torah 1 day, then he will not bring a carbon even though he became Tame. So it's interesting. He's a regular Nazir Torah. He started in Nazir B'Tahira, but he came Tame the first day, so he cannot lose 2 days of his count. He doesn't follow the full cycle of what a Nazir Tame is.
Does this mean that you can only become a Nazir if you are Tahor? If you
At this point, that's how we understand it. That you could only become a Nazir if you're Tahor, precisely.
Okay, so it's not, you're saying it's a Havamina. This is not, we're going
Yeah,
to,
the Gemara
every
is gonna end
case
up-
until
the
now
Gemara
would be
is
the
gonna
same
say-
situation.
The Gemara is only going to say it's an exclusive thing Lagabe bringing the karbonos. But for now, where the assumption is that you cannot become a Nazir when you're Tame.
And that means that meanwhile you can drink wine and
That's precisely the child, right?
okay, number one. Number two, this rule that we said, Yom Rishayim, that there has to be more than one day. Is this by every Nazir or only somebody that's
It's maximum by every Nazir. Either effect Gemara. Misha Nazar who beveis akvaris. So this is the case of our Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Naziris Chol Alav, Reish Lakish Amar Ein Naziris Chol Alav. Exactly the question that Avigdor was probing, and Chaim as well. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Naziris Chol Alav. Why? Savar Mitla Tali V'Kaima. The Naziris is there. Given the Mishkacha Tahira Chayla. So Rabbi Yochanan is saying, after I become Tahar, do I need to be Makabal Naziris again? Because my original Kabbalah was not good, or my original Kabbalah was good, but it wasn't Chal on me yet. And the moment I become Tahar, it's automatically Chal, and now I'm a Nazir, which is the position of Rabbi Yochanan. For Shlokish Amar Ein Naziris Chal Alav. You were Makabal Naziris at a time where you couldn't be a Nazir, so your Kabbalah is nothing. And therefore, Ihadar v'Omar, if once again you say Hareini Nazir, then Chayla Lei, Biloi Loi. And Taishus explains, could be you don't need a full Kabbalah's Naziris of Hareini Nazir. You can say, okay, I'm ready to start my original Kabbalah. That might also be a Kabbalah. So you might not need to use the same syntax as a full Kabbalah, but you definitely need something to initiate the Naziris. Eisei Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Misha Nazir v'hu beveis hakfaris. Rabbi Yochanan asked the Kasha and Shlokish from our very Mishnah. And the Geshmak about the next blot is that we're going to be reusing the same two rayas to prove different things the whole time. So we'll have a Clarkite in the Mishnais that we're bringing as rayas. One of them is our Mishnah. Even if you're there 30 days, it's not going to be a Naziris for any maybe carbon tumah. So we're medai carbon tumah who delay maisi. It's only carbon tumah you don't have to bring. So it's shver and shlokish. The Mishnah says the only distinction is that you don't bring a carbon. But like every other prat, it's like a regular Naziris. If that's the case, you should not have to make a new Kabbalah. So it's shver and shlokish. Amalei Shlokish says that's not how I read it. When I read it, Eine maybe carbon tumah, I read it as Eine b'toyras tumah, the Eine b'toyras carbon. I'm not saying that the Mishnah is specifically only this, only legabi the carbon. I'm not a Nazir. It means I'm not in the parsha of Nazirs. I'm not in the parsha of Karbanis. So therefore, of course, Rish Lakish holds that you need to make a new Kabbalah. Eisei. So the Gemara tries on another kasha on Rish Lakish. Mishoya Tame, v'Nazir, v'Nazar. He was Tame and he made Naziris while he was Tame. So now it's directly answering Chaim's question. Osir legaleach. Even though you were Tame, so you were in a basic forest and you're Makabal Naziris, the chiyuv, the isser of the Naziris that are not Tama related are upon you. So Osir legaleach, v'lishlish yayin, and even v'li Tame l'meisa. All of the isser Naziris are upon you. All of these, so clearly his Kabbalah, even when he was Tame, is clearly a good Kabbalah. So this is a klor raya against Rish Lakish. Clearly, there was a full Kabbalah Naziris here. If Naziris is not chal, why would he get malchus? Dr. Gemara, the only way Rish Lakish can explain this is b'yotzei v'nichnas. It must mean, when are you soivik es harboyim? If you matar yourself and then you came and then you started over again, which is very schwer. It's ikar chaser when I safer. But that's how you'd have to be matrik if you want to hold it Rish Lakish. But don't worry, Rish Lakish is anyway you're gonna have to change. Eisvei. Now we have a third Mishnah, and these three Mishnahs are going to be chazered over for the next plot. Ein vein Tame shenazar. There's no difference between somebody who was makabel naziris while he was Tame, lenazir tahar shenitma, to a Nazir who was Tar when he was Makabal Naziris, and then later he became Tame. The only difference is Elatame Shenazar Shivi Shaloi Oilaloi Min. The seventh day is Oilaloi Min. Why? Because someone who's Tame and was Makabal Naziris does not have to bring Karbanos, right? Since he doesn't have to bring Karbanos, as the Mishnah said, so then on day 7, meaning after he had the Mayim of the Paraduma sprished on him on day 3 and night 7, he goes to the mikveh and now he's Tahar. Since he's Tahar, he can already start now counting his Naziris. So day 7 in the process of his tahira will be day number 1 of his naziris. But the nazir tar shenitma, even after he spends 7 days becoming tar, on the 8th day he has to bring a series of karbanos. So since he has to bring on the 8th day a series of karbanos, he's not completely finished, and therefore he cannot start counting his naziris until day 8. Therefore, ein shvi shaloi oil leminyan. If you hold like Rish Lakish that the first naziris is not chal, and you have to be makabel it again, how could day 7 count as day 1? You weren't makabel it. You weren't makabel it. So, frag the Gemara on Rish Lakish, you were not makabel it.
You were not Makabel.
According to Rish Lakish, you have to make a new kabbalah naziris, and you weren't. It just says day 7 is oiloi without any kabbalah. So that's the kasha Rish Lakish. So Amar Marbar Avashi, therefore mechal kul amaloi pligi dechayla. Everybody avada holds, even Rish Lakish holds that avada in naziris is chal. So until now we thought what was the machlokes of Rish Lakish, whether you have to make a new kabbalah. Now we're changing Rish Lakish. Even Rish Lakish agrees that you don't have to make a new kabbalah. So lagabe what halacha did Rish Lakish say the naziris is not chal? Elaki pligi la milki. The whole machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish is: do you get malchus? Do you get malchus for becoming Tame when you were makabel naziris while you were Tame? Rabbi Yochanan savar kivan the chayla lucky. Since the naziris was chal, you get malchus. Rish Lakish savar loy lucky. You don't get malchus for it, but avada it's chal. So we've now changed the whole scope of the machlokes. The whole machlokes is do you get malchus for the for being metame? Vibalt, you were tame at the time that you were makabel the naziris, so maybe then you don't get malchus. Zok Gemara.
This second Tame is B'Shasi's Tame or after he was retired?
The Shatsi's tummy. Or if he drank wine. We have our Mishnah. Afilu hayasham shloishim yoim ein oidun loy min aminyan ve'enim mevi carbon toma. So once again, we're going to bring the same rayas that we brought against Rish Lakish the first time around. We're going to bring the same rayas again. Carbon toma hu delay maisi hamilkalokiyale. The same deek we made before is that the Mishnah Dafka says the whole nafkamina is carbon toma. Mashma in every other way, it's a perfect naziris, and therefore you would get malchus for violations. So it's rare Rish Lakish who holds you don't get malchus. So come on, bedinu the listening ein eloika. Really, the Mishnah should speak out ein eloika as well. Elamishum the kaboila Mishnah seifa. Since in the seifa it says yatzav nichnas oilay min minyan umevi carbon toma, therefore tanaresha ein mevi carbon toma. Avada, there's more differences between a nazir that was makabel naziris when he was Tame, that according to Rish Lakish, he does not get malchus. Hakam our Mishnah doesn't speak it out, because our Mishnah is focusing on the Eini Mevi Carbon Toma, because when it spoke about a regular nazir, it says maybe carbon toma, so therefore it itemized, it clarified, it spoke out more that Eini Mevi Carbon Toma if he was Tame when he was makabel naziris. But Avadi he does get malchus. Tashma, I'm sorry, but Avadi he does not get malchus, according to Rish Lakish. Tashma. Again, the same Mishnah that we asked on before. Ein vein tamei shenazar lenazar tar shenitma ela shenitma shetamei shenazar shvius le'olam min aminyan v'nazar tar shenitma ein shvi olam min aminyan. Once again, we make the same deal. That's the only difference. If shvi shaloi is olam min aminyan, hala malchus zev is ashaman. It's mashma you get malchus. So how could Mishlaka say you don't get malchus? Amalei loy litaglachas ze shavin. What it means to say is, the dik that you should make is they're not shavel lagabe shvi shloi, but they are shavel lagabe what? Lagabe taglachas zevis shavin, that they both need taglachas. I'm sorry. Avol in malchus my ze loika v'ze in loika. Are you going to tell me that malchus is different, and you shouldn't make the diak to say that they're shavel taglachas? You shouldn't make the diak to say that they're shavel malchus. Say the diak that they're shavel taglachas, but the Brasha still agrees with me, Rish Lakish, that you don't get malchus. Well, then Lisanya, let it say that. Let it say that. If this is one of the places where there's a difference, and our Mishnah is listing off now the differences between Tame and Nazar to a regular Nazar that became Tame, so this is a gewaltige difference. There's not only a difference of if you count day 7, there's another huge difference. If you get malchus for the other violations, that's a very big nafkamina. Why doesn't the Mishnah list it off? We're talking about someone who's doing the right thing. He became Tame, now he's doing the right thing to be Matar himself. So there, he doesn't have to be Mekabel and Nazirs. There on day 7 of his tires automatically can count the Nazir and Nazirs. But a guy who went b'mezid to be over Naziris, he went b'mezid to be Matam again, he went b'mezid to drink wine, we're not speaking about such a guy. We're only focused on a good guy who's doing the right thing. We're not talking about a guy who's going to go b'mezid because you only get malchus if you did it b'mezid. We're not speaking about someone who's going to be mezid to be over Naziris. Tashma, the same Mishnah again. Misha Yatame v'Nazar, Misha Yatame v'Nazar, Asher Lagalech, Vilish Yain, V'Mgilach V'Shas Yain v'Niptal Mesim, Haray Just Havik Sarbayim. So now where Shlokish is completely overslogan because we limited where Shlokish is halacha to just say that you don't get malchus. Now you see you do get malchus. Come to Chois, everybody holds you get malchus. Even though you're makabel naziris when you're a tamei, it's a proper kabbalah naziris. You get malchus. You don't have to be makabel again when you become tahar. The only nafkamina of whether or not you were tamei b'shas naziris is a special detail. You don't bring a carbon. You don't bring a carbon. What about taglachas? Boy Rava, Nazir v'hu b'veisek kfaris, mau boy shia l'malchus oloi. So we're going to discuss taglachas soon. Boy shia l'malchus oloi. I'm here in the basic forest, and I'm Tame, and I was Makabal Naziris. So normally, how do you get malchus if you're a Nazir, you're a Tame? If you go b'mezid and you touch a maze, you go b'mezid into an oil maze. So you did a maise. Here, you're already Tame. So what do I need to do to be considered mazed in being metame to be able to get malchus when I'm in this situation? Do I have to wait there a certain minimum period of time so that that's considered another violation? Or the moment I was makabel upon myself, the naziris, and I knew I was tame, I get malchus for that alone without waiting there any serious amount of time. And we're soon going to see what serious amount of time would mean. So hey chedami, ilay medu amri lei. If I'm about to be Mekabel Naziris, I'm in the base of Klorish, and people are telling me, don't be Mekabel Naziris, you're Tame. Loy Sinzar. So then Lama Loy Shehiyah. Why do I need Shehiyah? I should get Malchus just for being Mekabel Naziris. Nazir my time Aloy Boy Shehiyah. A Nazir who became Tame, why doesn't he have to be there for any amount of time? The moment he becomes Tame, he gets Malchus. He gets the Kamashribe. It's because they warned him, don't become Tame. And he went to Mezid and became Tame. They're warning him not to be Mekabel Naziris because he cannot be Mekabel Naziris if he's Tame. So that cannot be our shaila of whether or not you need Shehiyah. So what is the shaila? He was already a Nazir, is what our shaila is. And they carried him in a box, so it's mafsik, he's not going to become Tame, it's mafsik from the oil of mace. And then, while he was inside there, without his want, and busted open the oil, and now he's subject to becoming Toma. So he finds himself in a matzav of Toma. So the question is, normally when you're Toma and you're in the base of Mikdash, there's a minimum amount of time you have to be there before you would get Malchus. So Kikamin Shehiyah. Where did we learn that in order for someone to violate being Tame in the base of Mikdash, he has to be there for a certain amount of time? And the Mefarish tells us it's Shah Kidei Hishtachavoya. You have to wait there long enough to bow down a couple of seconds. That's only b'beis hamikdash. Avalav Roy, but other Isurim of Tumah, like a Nazir becoming Tame, Loy, maybe you're instantaneously over. You don't have to be there but Tumasai for a certain period of time. Adam Aloishna, that for every type of violation of Tumah, you need to be there for a certain period of time, such as Kadesh Tachavaya. So Kamar Teku, we don't know the answer. Boy Rabashi, another child. Nazar Rubu Vesak Forest. Once again, he was Makabal Naziris while he was Tame. Ton Giluach Oiloi. Does he need Giluach? He doesn't need Karbanos, right? He doesn't need Karbanos, but we know a Nazir that was a regular Nazir Torah that became Tame, at the end of his Tahira, when he finishes becoming Torah, he also has to shave all his hair again. But we have over here, obviously, a special limud. Our Mishnah tells us that he will not bring karbanos. So, since he's not bringing karbanos, does he need giluach or not? Maybe the limit is only that he doesn't bring karbanos, but maybe he does need giluach. So do you need a special giluach ceremony that you do after a Nazir Tame is matayar himself and he's ready to start again? Does he need giluach? Kiboy taglachas is tar shenitma. The kametamel in Naziruse. Maybe who needs taglachas? Someone who was originally tar became tame. Such a person needs taglachas as part of his process. Abel tame shenazir loy. Maybe not. Idimalois not. Or maybe it doesn't make a difference. You don't compare the taglachas to the karbonis, and even though there's no karbonis, but there would be taglachas. Tashma, mishanazir vu beveis hakvaris. Afilu hayisham shloishim yoim. Again, we're going to bring the same rise as from our Mishnah all over again. Mishanazir vu beveis hakvaris. Afilu hayisham shloishim yoim. Einoi oiloi loy min aminyan. He does not count to the 30. The einoi may be carbon tuma. So we make the same deal. Carbon tuma hudloi maisi. Avul gelucha boy. So we bring a dik. The only chiluk is whether or not he has to bring a carbon, but everything else is like a regular nazir. So he should need geluach. So Gemara, no, matam kamar, matam and maybe carbon toma. Mishum delebai geluche. They're part and parcel of the same process of a nazir that became tame, starting over again. Giluach and tuma travel together. So therefore, Zok to Gemara, since the Mishnah says he doesn't bring a carbon, it's linked to giluach. As Tosfos says, the ha b'ha talya, the psukim krivim zelazeh. The psukim are near each other and they're totally zebazeh. So when the Mishnah says you don't bring a carbon, it could also mean that you're not megalech either. Tashma, ein bein tamei shenazar lenazar tar shenitma. Exactly the same Mishnah again. El tamei shenazar shvi shaloi oilei loy min aminyan. The nazar tar shenitma in shvi shaloi oilei loy min aminyan. My love. Maybe you should be medayik from there that they both need taglachas. So make the raya like we said on Amar Aleph that lamalka zev is a shavin. Aval taglachas mai zemegaleach v'zein megaleach. Are you going to say that's a difference? If you were tame when you were makabel nazirs, you don't need giluach lisanya. Once again, why doesn't the Mishnah list that off as one of the differences? Zakt Gemara tana shvi shaloi v'chal mili. When the Mishnah says that the Shavi Shlo is Eilim Dominion, obviously you don't need Giluach because you're automatically starting again. You don't need this. You don't need the parsha of Karbonis, which would make you wait to the 8th day, and therefore we already said that Giluach and Karbonis travel together. Tashma, Ainli Ella Yemei Timosoi. So now we're up to a new right. What is the shiloh that we're clearing? Does this Nazir who was Tame when he was Makabel Naziris, does he need Giluach or not? So Tashma, we know that if a Nazir becomes Tame, the days that he's Tame, those 7 days till he's retire himself, they definitely don't count. But what about a Mitzayra who's in a different process? He's not Tame Tumas Meis. How do we know that you paused the Naziris while he's a Mitzayra, like we learned? Maybe you should continue counting. How do you know that when someone's a Mitzayra that it doesn't count? Vidinu, I can tell you it's a svara. Ma yemei temasai, migaleach umevi carbon. Madich yemei temasai, or it's just like yemei temasai. At the end of his tuma, what happens? He takes a haircut and then he brings a carbon. Af yemei chilutai, so too, as part of the process of becoming tar from mitzayra, you're also migaleach umevi carbon. So let's say they should be similar. And therefore, just like the Yemei Tuma, while someone's Tame, of course, you cannot count those days as part of his Nasiris. So too, when he's a Mitzayah, so that's the Gemara's logic to say that Yemei Tuma should be no different than while he's a Mitzayah, and those days don't count as part of his counting of the Ziris. Zok Gemara, but maybe you don't have a Raya. Maybe there's a difference. If someone becomes Tame after 10 days of Naziris, he loses the first 10 days as well. But if someone becomes a Mitzayah after 10 days of Naziris, he doesn't lose those original 10 days. So maybe there's a difference. If the Tome is Mavatal the previous 10 days that you counted with the Hira, surely they will be Mavatal the days that you're actually Tame. But Tame b'meichalutai she'edim Mavatal sakoidmin kula alma moida that you don't lose the 10 days prior to the tzaras. So then maybe tzaras isn't so bad, and therefore you can even count those days that he's a Mitzayah, and therefore maybe lefichach oin loy min aminyan. Zok Gemara, no, you cannot say that. Amrit, because I have a kazaka b'chaymer. Uman Nazir bekever. Madich a Nazir who became a Nazir while he was Tame, right? So what's going to be with his hair? Shesairoi royu litaglachas. His hair that he's growing while he's Tame will be able to be used for Giluach. Nevertheless, ein oilun loy bin amin. Nevertheless, those days that he's Tame do not count towards the total number of days of Nazirs that he has to keep. The hair that he has growing on his head while he's a B'tzaira, those he cannot use them for the taglachas of his Naziris. You know why? Because he's cutting them after he's a B'tzaira. Like again, surely those days should not count towards his Naziris. Surely they shouldn't count towards his Naziris. So Zok to Gemara, my love, taglachas. So this is a machlokes as to whether or not we have this. We're clearing here in this brisa whether or not the days that he's a mitzayra, if they count towards his Naziris. But let's be medayik from the words. What are we saying? We're saying the Nazir Kever, his sar is royal taglachas. Which taglachas are we talking about? My love, taglachas tuma. Pashtus the taglachas is at the end of him becoming, at the end of his tuma, when he's going to become tar and ready to start again. That's the taglachas we're talking about. So you see, as an aside from this brisa, that this brisa holds that you do taglachas after he's going to become tar from his tuma. So even though when he was mekabel Naziris, he was a Nazir Bekever. When he was mekabel Naziris, he was already tamei. The brisa seems to be saying that before he starts his new Naziris, he's going to need a giluach. So we have a right to shaila that you need taglachas. So that's not what the brisa means. It's taglachas tahira. You know what it means that a Nazir Bekever, his saira is royal taglachas? It means his saira is royal taglachas when he finally finishes his Naziris later on. This same hair, since he never had to cut it, since he doesn't need to cut it, even when he becomes tar, he doesn't need to cut it. This same hair will be royal to be used when he cuts his hair at the end of his Naziris. That's what we mean to say. So the Gemara is, the Bryce's right is madich by a Nazir Bekever, where the hair that's on his head while he's Tame will be used to discharge his Naziris way down the road after he's Matai himself and after he finishes the Naziris to Tahira. And nevertheless, it doesn't count. Kol shekain, the hair that's on his head when he's a Mitzayra, which clearly won't be able to be used towards his Naziris, because it's going to be cut off, surely those days shouldn't count. And Hachinami Mistavra, it's Mistavra to say that the Mishnah is referring, when it says the Taglachas of this Nazir who's Tomei, where it's referring to the Taglachas not at the end of his Yemei Tumah, when he's going to start to count his Naziris. It's actually referring to cutting his hair when he finally finishes his Naziris B'Tahira. It's that we're talking about. If you think the Tane is referring to when he's cutting his hair after he becomes Tame, before he starts his Naziris, Yemei Chilutei Milei Boy Taglachas, Yemei Chilutei also needs Taglachas. So we're referring to the Taglachas before he starts to recount. It's the same thing. Why are we making it sound like you made Terasa any better or worse? Zok Gemara. So therefore, from that fact that we're saying it's oila sort of the Nazirusai, it must be the Nazirus, the Tahira that we're talking about. This Taglachas is for. Zok Gemara. Loy Taglachas the Nazirus Katani. It's not a raya because you can mean Taglachas the Nazirus. At the end of the day, whether it's being used for to finish his Naziris at the end of the Yemei Taira, or whether he's doing a Taglachas before he starts counting his Yemei Taira after he became Tamei, either one of those are Taglachas of Naziris. So what the Gemara would be, what the Mishnah could be saying is, Madich the Nazir who became Tamei, where the hair that we're going to cut, whether we cut it later at the end of the Yemei Taira, or even if the Taglachas happens before he starts counting Naziris, the cutting is a Naziristic cutting. Why do you cut, even if you have to make the Taglachas before, why are you cutting it? You're cutting it because the Hilchos Naziris requires that if you're Tomei, before you count again, make a Taglachas. So, Madich the Naziris, which is hair can be used for Naziristic purposes. Nevertheless, those days don't count towards his total days of Naziris. Kol Shekein the Mitzayra, which his hair is not even used for mitzvah. It's not even used for Nazir's purposes at all. The reason why it's been cut is to follow the hilchas of mitzvah. So his hair cutting has no shaychus to Nazir's. Kolchkin, the days that he's a mitzvah shouldn't count towards the tally of his Nazir's.
But Mashal, did you say that? But if somebody starts, right, he has 10 days of getting Naziris, then he becomes a Mitzvah.
Right.
So you say that the Mitzvah days don't count, but
Right.
the first days. But if he has to cut his hair, I thought the first day, 10 days of hair.
Sure, well, he didn't cut his hair for those 10 days.
Right.
So then he has
cut it
Naziris.
later because he cut it off after he became
Yeah, but during those first days, he didn't cut his hair. So why wouldn't they count towards Naziris?
You can't use it for Taglachas because it doesn't have it.
So who said you need to? Who said you need to?
For the ganze Schmidt, I asked the first day what count the Taglachas in the Chesm. It looks like that the Taglachas is the main thing when the hair and the Taglachas, if somebody doesn't have hair. So in a Taglachas.